Hi, everybody. I'm Essex County Commissioner Brendan Gill, also honored to be the chair of the Montclair Dems. We're excited to present the interviews with Mary Alice Williams. This year, there is no more important election across the country than the race to become the next governor of the state of New Jersey. I'm proud to lead this great statewide organization made up of over 12,000 volunteers who help to elect our Democratic candidates up and down the ballot. In order to educate our members, as well as the public, the Montclair Dems is proud to produce a series of long-form, one-on-one interviews with all 6 Democratic candidates for governor. We are privileged to have legendary broadcast journalist Mary Alice Williams conducting these interviews. Today we are joined by Sean Spiller. Mr. Spiller is the former mayor of Montclair and serves as the president of the New Jersey Education Association. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Mary Alice Williams and Sean Spiller.
Thanks, Brendan. Sean Spiller, former mayor of Montclair. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. Good to see you again.
Why do you want to be governor?
Listen, I've had a front row seat for a lot of different things in my life, and for me, it started as a kid coming to this country as a young boy, chasing that American dream, and but right away I saw my parents, struggling to make it work. My dad would be away for months at a time, sending dollars home, and my brother and I realized, like, this is a hard place. This is a hard thing, and I guess I've always seen that. Becoming a high school science teacher, talking with the parents of the kids that I'd teach, they'd come in and say, "Oh, I'm gonna make this decision, that. Can I get the tutoring? Can I afford it?" You just constantly saw that it's just a hard place to afford. And I've seen it as a mayor, and a council person for 12 years with home prices and rents going through the roof. I've seen it, in my own life, having 2 kids now, and the cost of quality early education, childcare. It's a great place to live. It's a great state. Of all the places in the world, this is where my parents chose, but it's a hard place to afford. And I'm running for governor to try and make it a little bit easier for working class folks.
Was there one experience when you were mayor of Montclair that teed you up to be governor, that positioned you to do
Well,
it?
I'd say the biggest thing, though, I came in at a time during COVID, right? Which I think anybody who thinks they know what they're doing coming into a job, COVID is just, oh my gosh, right? But one of the big things that really we experienced was just massive increases in our rents. They just went through the roof. And when I talk about affordability, one of the things is homes, right? Houses, rents, right? It's making sure you can afford that. It's the biggest part of people's budgets, and we saw it massively increasing. So I'm proud to pass the first ever rent control law here in Montclair, but that's a stopgap to making sure we've got more homes on the market that folks can buy, that they can afford. They're not getting outbid by Wall Street, but also, we've got to make sure we keep our rents down, not leaving it to developers to build high-end luxury units and not give us the housing that's affordable that we need.
How do you do that? How do you pay for it? You're right, affordability is the buzzword this year, but how do you make housing costs more affordable?
So let's talk about housing. There's two main things. One is home ownership. For someone like me right here in town, right? Montclair's a great place, everybody, but it's unbelievably hard to afford. It took me 2 years to be able to find my first home. Could only find a multifamily house that I could afford, living in a 1-bedroom with a 4-bedroom above, right? But even that starter home, I'll call it, I guess, is not available to so many folks right now. You see LLCs, venture capitalists, they're buying them all up and they're raising the rents. So for me, I'd do a couple things. Number one, I'd create a period where we, the people, have the chance at first putting bids on homes, right? So we're not getting bid up by these Wall Street entities, these corporate entities.
How do you legally do that?
Well, you see it right now. We have the first right of refusal as townships on properties, on government properties, et cetera. So, within the,
regular houses.
That's why you got to change laws, right? That's why you elect somebody who's fighting for the people, right? We've got to make sure that we are not constantly sitting back and saying we think it's okay that corporate interests get to control the decision making. Look, this race is every bit as much about changing systems as it is about the policy. We've left it in the hands of the wealthy, the politically connected for too long. This is the chance to say, no, let's pass laws that help us, right? Working class folks. Buy that first home, keep the rent down, et cetera. That's an important piece right now.
The Mount Laurel decision requires every town to provide a fair share of affordable housing. Last year's law to streamline development of affordable housing has hit snags, political and legal. What specific plans do you have to increase affordable housing?
Yeah, I think it's an understatement to say it's hit snags, right? You've got towns and others outright pushing back, right? Going to
Right.
court saying they don't want to do it. So first and foremost, I say this: we need housing that's affordable in every single one of our communities. That's absolutely a fact, right? We want to be able to have that first home someone can buy. We want to be able to have a parent who wants to stay independent. These are
So
important
all that
reasons, right?
requires is
So,
enforcing the existing law.
well, it does a couple things though. Under the existing law, you've got to build your affordable housing allotment. Fair, and I agree with it. But you're seeing the lawsuits right now, and I think to get through that, what I would do as governor is I would invest. I would come into townships and I would say, look, you have to build this, yes, but we're not going to leave you on your own. We know you don't just have extra money in your budget. So what all the towns are doing is they're turning to developers. They're saying, developers, will you build us these 20 required units? And the developer says, no problem, but I want 400 high-end luxury units. I want tax breaks. I want all these other things. And the community's in an uproar going, this is not in line with the character of what we want here. And we get such a small number of affordable
Right.
units and all these high-end luxury units. And by the
Right.
way, everyone else just raises their rents. If we come in and as governor, when I invest as partners, we say we're not going to build 400 units with 20 affordable. We're going to build 100 units. We're going to build 30 of those affordable. We're going to add workforce housing on there as another component because there's so many folks who don't qualify for affordable but can't afford to live in the town. We're going to have senior housing. We're going to have housing for veterans, for folks with disabilities. We can stack that on if we're investing as partners. So yes, the law requires it, but right now when we're leaving it up to towns, they're fighting in the courts and we're not getting the housing that we need.
Housing has an impact on schools, which has been determined face de facto segregation here in the state of New Jersey. The Trump administration cut $1.2 billion in education funding, closed the program that funded Head Start, and another that helped New Jersey farmers provide fresh food to schools and food pantries,
Unconscionable.
and cut off $85 million in pandemic relief money. Phew. Our schools are the magnets that draw families to this state. How do you support them? How do you improve them?
Yeah, I think a couple things. You started out that question, right, about how segregated our communities are, right? Our communities are unbelievably segregated, even in one of the most diverse states in the nation, which leads to very segregated schools, right? So first, we should be looking at that issue. Right here in Montclair, we have a great system, a magnet system, where a little bit stressful, I'll say with our little guy.
It's a sensational
Sensational,
system, but it relies on buses.
It does.
Buses are expensive.
Yeah, but within a township, right? So it's not unmanageable. We do it here in Montclair. And there's plenty of township cities that could benefit from this, right? Jersey City is one of the most segregated school districts within, their community, within the city. When you talk about sending kids, in different places within the district, right? That's the first layer to helping break down how segregated our schools are, opening up those opportunities. As a governor, I'd invest in using the school funding formula for districts in those ring districts around more diverse communities. When they open up their seats, allowing more kids, again, those choices to go there, and again, diversifying our communities and our schools. But I'd say this to the second part of your question, right? When you talk about the funding that we've seen cut from our schools, yes, you're right, the $1.2 billion on top of all the other losses with COVID dollars pulled back. But remember, that's just one of, the cuts to Medicaid and Medicare, the cuts to
We'll get to
voter.
that in a minute.
Right.
but-
So you've got them all lined up. So I'll just say this very clearly. As governor, we are not going to be able to make up these differences by trimming around the edges or figuring it out. We're going to have to be very bold and change our New Jersey tax code to go after the very dollars that Donald Trump and his puppet master Elon Musk are stealing out of our pockets and our programs. We need to invest those dollars, and we need to do that by going after those same people with our Jersey tax code to get those dollars and keep them in New Jersey.
That sounds easier than it will be. Governor Murphy's indicated that between federal funding freezes and outright cuts, the state, which we've said already has the highest business and property taxes in the nation, could lose $27.5 billion. Now, he's proposed hiking taxes by more than $1 billion. What would you do?
Well, listen to that number you just said, right? $27 billion, right?
27.5.
27.5. Let's not forget that $500 million. $27.5 billion. There is no conversation you and I can have. There's no conversation anyone else can have that says we're going to find a way to make up $27.5 billion by just looking over here or pulling a little bit from over there. It's what I said before. And it's not something that is far-fetched if we reset our mindset around, hey, Donald Trump and Elon Musk have told us why they're doing this. Project 2025 lays it out. They're gobbling up all these dollars to give massive tax breaks at the federal level by revamping our tax code. They're working on it right now. It's not a secret. It's not a surprise to us. They're doing it right now.
Right.
And we can literally look to see where they are giving those massive breaks. And you know how they're giving those massive breaks? By stealing $27.5 billion from us. So we have to go after those very dollars.
By doing
Changing
what?
our New Jersey tax
Are
code
you
and
raising
allowing us to
taxes on
keep
the
the
people of New Jersey?
on the same billionaires that have gotten a massive windfall
So
from the
that's how
federal
you
government.
do it. Raise taxes on the wealthy.
You literally look to see exactly where the federal government gives massive tax breaks, and you say on our New Jersey tax code side, we are going to, reflect, if you will, and mirror those opposite exact taxes to keep folks in the state no worse off than they were before, but certainly not getting a windfall as a billionaire on the backs of so many of us.
I want to throw this in just because everybody cares about it, and mostly it is not a state function to handle transit in this country. Route 80, it's going to be another month
Yeah.
before they fix that hole. NJ Transit is paid for by corporate dollars and the federal government. When people come and complain to you about the state of transit and transportation in New Jersey, what do you say?
Yeah, well, often not even just coming to me. When I was dropping our older one off at school the other day, the secretary ran out because she wanted to talk to me about NJ Transit and some of the issues she was having, right? So I hear it all the time. And I think there's some distinctions. Number one, when we talk about our busing system in the state, I think there's a lot of investments that we can make by combining a lot of different conversations. Oftentimes we have siloed conversations around transportation on one hand. Then we talk about the environment on another. Then we talk about infrastructure in another way. All of these things are connected. So as we're investing in the green economy, as we're upgrading our infrastructure and electrifying, as we're getting new vehicles and other pieces, that's a chance to upgrade our bus fleet to make sure it's clean, reliable, and get us to a place where folks want to be on it, they feel it's safe, and are utilizing it. Rail, a little bit different, right? Rail falls under Amtrak and federal and regional and a lot of other pieces here, right? So I understand that we are going to have to work with our partners, especially our nearby states, as we look for solutions. Look, this administration in his first term kept talking about the infrastructure. It's coming. It never came. But hopefully there will be investments in infrastructure by this federal administration. We need those dollars to make those improvements on the rail side. But until we do, we've got to have clear alternative plans. So folks know that when something happens, here is the solution. It's going to be clearly communicated to you. Example of, hey, if your rail line is breaking down, here's where our busing lines will be available. Here's how we're going to run them on what schedule. Here's the app that's going to share the information to you. Have that information readily available for folks so they understand that, okay, until the federal government is making these investments, until we're making the progress that we want to see, there is a clear plan that I know I can follow to make sure I can get home from work or get to work.
Off the point, but Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, got that terrible bridge collapse fixed in, 6 days? How did he do that, and would you use that as your template?
Listen, I think getting things done rapidly is immensely important. And I think a lot of solutions when you're trying to problem solve, I know this as a teacher, it's bringing folks together, right? Having broad conversations and looking at solutions. In Pennsylvania, right, they were able to just fill it in, right? And fill in a gap, right? Obviously with sinkholes and some other things a little bit different, right? But it is bringing the experts together to say, what are the solutions for the problems that we're facing? And how do we look at maybe things that we haven't before to say, are there, new techniques or other ways that folks are missing that we can do things more rapidly? So we've got to look at everything for sure, but I'm not the sinkhole expert, so I can't sit here and give you that answer right now, but it is talking to folks who are.
I'm still trying to understand how your math works.
Mm-hmm. On
the budget, on paying for all of this.
Yeah, so it works in a couple ways. If the federal government gives $1 tax break to a billionaire, we're changing New Jersey's tax code to tax that billionaire $1 more. So we are going to follow the money, right? And right now we have the roadmap, right? Project 2025 is that roadmap. We can look at Donald Trump. We can look at Elon Musk. We literally see every program they're shutting down. You mentioned them before, all the dollars they're pulling from our state and others. We know what they're doing, and they're literally crafting and drafting right now the roadmap that we need to follow, which is the tax breaks they are about to give to billionaires and ultra-rich corporations. That's how we pay for what we need in this state.
Let's talk about health care for a moment, NJ Family Care. relied on more than $14 billion in federal funds every year. Now that's in jeopardy. Congress is weighing cutting Medicaid, relied upon by nearly 2 million people in this state.
Yeah.
How do you fill the gap?
Yeah.
Again, tax the wealthy?
Wait a
I
minute,
mean,
but we're acting as if here's the problem, right? I go in and I visit a senior center in Pequannock, I believe it was, and the first thing when I walked in, folks were literally in tears, going, "Oh my God, Sean, Medicaid is the stopgap between what I can pay and being able to live here." But
sure.
that's what's on the line. So when
Right.
I start my thinking, it's from what's on the line. And when you talk about we're losing another 14 billion, well, where's that money going? Where's the 14 billion going that they're taking from us? It's going to tax breaks for billionaires, right? That's what they're doing. They're not just taking these dollars and we don't know what's happening. So if we want to be able to invest in the programs that we care about, we're going to have to follow the cuts, follow the dollars they're stealing from us. Look, New Jersey, enough, right? Enough. We always give more than we get back. Okay, we worked with that system. We made it, work in our state. But right now, they are stealing every single thing from us. They are going after every program, every need that we have. To give to whom? To give to the very people in control right now, the billionaires, right? We cannot sit back and say, we're watching them take all this money. We know whose pockets they're putting it in, but we can't figure out what we can do about it. I know what we can do about it. Go get those dollars and invest them in the programs that they're underfunding and cutting.
New Jersey law protects women's health care by guaranteeing the right to abortion and is stockpiling medical abortifactants should the law be changed.
Look, I think right now we see a problem where Donald Trump, quite frankly, thinks he can ignore the law in so many ways. I think Jersey has done a great job in terms of standing up and protecting women's rights in the state, but we need to do more, right? We know that for those who are traveling into this state to get medical care, their states are trying to get information about them, trying to go after the doctors, right? Trying to be punitive. We've got to make sure we guard our information and our data. We've got to make sure we protect our doctors, folks who are coming in. We want to make this state as strong as possible for women's health care and certainly any procedure or anything that they would need. And as governor, that's exactly what I'll do through executive orders, laws, whatever is necessary. But it's really strengthening all the additional pieces as they continue to come after us.
One of the thorniest issues in the country and in this state is immigration. The Trump administration is investigating Governor Murphy right now over his immigration policies and wants to allow ICE to expand a Newark prison to detain immigrants. How will you ensure protecting and due process for the undocumented?
Listen, it's personal to me. Every one of these issues, it's personal to me. And I think that's what is different about my campaign right now. I'm an immigrant, right? I came to this country as a young boy. When I see right now they're threatening people's naturalization process because somebody says the wrong thing or they don't like, where you're going and they pull it away from you, that's a real threat right now. So I just want to tell everybody who's watching this is not about someone else. This is not about some other immigrant. This is about you. It's about all of us. When they round folks up, they've been rounding up folks who served in our military. They've been rounding up folks who are U.S. citizens. They've been wrongfully, mistakenly deporting folks and sending them to prison, right? That's what's on the line for all of us, not just immigrants like myself. So it starts from a point of personal feeling on this issue. Now, listen, I'm going to have an attorney general who's aggressively working to enforce New Jersey laws. I'm going to make sure that I'm using executive orders at the governor's office to stop and push back against the rapid executive orders that the president is utilizing. I'm going to make sure we're not sharing information or cooperating with ICE in any way. We're making sure that our other agencies and entities are not sharing information that then can be used to track folks down and go after residents in this state. I am committed to standing up for every resident in this state because that's my charge as governor. It's to make life better for folks, not to divide, not to sow fear, not to have kids afraid to go to school because they're worried they won't see their parents again, not to have folks worried about going for the care they need because they're worried they're going to get rounded up. It's not who we are as a country, and it's time for us to realize that and all of us to stand up collectively.
Change of subject, climate. There has been a terrible fire rapidly spreading in Ocean County, which at least in the first few days was unable to be contained by firefighters. Congress cut $217 million in federal funding for 212 New Jersey projects that address climate change, along with the jobs that they would have created. Could you resurrect any of those projects without federal money?
Yes, I think so, right? And I'll say this, I've been having a number of conversations with a lot of folks in these other sectors, whether that's wind, solar, et cetera, right? And I just want to remind everybody, though, what you described that you started your question with is the cost to not doing enough right now. There is a massive cost, whether it be the wildfires that we're facing. There's a massive cost right here in town. When I had to send the fire department to pump out basements from those 100-year floods that were happening every other year.
Yeah, right.
There is a cost when you can't afford your insurance to protect your assets because it keeps going up, whether you're a shore community or here in town. These are costs to our dependence on big oil, and they keep us dependent on it. And every time they're seeing a shift, they come back and say, now's not the time, or they've got a president right now who's trying to, undermine what we're doing. So yes, as governor, I would invest. I would invest in what we can move forward right now, which is a lot of the hookups and other technology that we need on land for if we're talking about wind energies. We've got to make sure we're diversifying in terms of the battery technologies and the investments there to make sure we can capture more solar energy and use it at off-peak hours, right? So there are investments we can make right now as a state that aren't only good for our economy, that are also good for the environment, and by the way, help to keep down our energy bills, which we're all seeing that 20% increase already, right?
20%.
And going up again, right? And it's because, again, we have not brought online all these alternative energy projects. We do not have the energy that we need, and big oil says, we'll give it to you for a higher rate. We've got to make sure we bring these projects online because it's affecting our bottom line.
Who will pay for them?
Well, listen, we've got to invest as a state because when we do, we help the economy. So the state plays a role in that. There's obviously private investors who are looking for the confidence that's needed. When I talk to folks, they say, hey, Sean, I said, what's the biggest thing we could do? What can I do as governor to help you? They said, Sean, show us the confidence that you're committed to this work and our investors will be there. But right now,
Really?
we're not sure because
so you're going to rely on private investment to
Well, that's
to
the
build
biggest
these
investment in our projects right now. It's private investment, right? So we've got to make sure that they are comfortable and confident that we as a state are committed. And as we show them that, they will continue to invest and move forward in these projects.
How do you rate Governor Murphy?
Look, I think he's done a good job in many ways. When you come in after a guy by the name of Chris Christie, who decimated the state in so many ways, who quite frankly was a lot like Donald Trump. He was bully 1.0 before we had bully 2.0 here, right? So he had to come in. He's had the credit upgrades since then. He's invested in things that I think are important. But I will say this, on the main issues, when you talk about housing, when you talk about healthcare costs, when you talk about quality early education, childcare, and when you talk about the environment and energy costs, I think those are 4 areas where there could have been more done, and those are the areas that I want to focus on as governor.
So if on an A to F
Listen,
schedule,
it's funny. I smile. I know one of the debates they asked us to give a grade, and as a teacher, I'm reluctant to give one grade. Right? Come on, there's a whole host of things that you assess somebody on. We don't do that.
We're just
Right.
going to skip it. If you win,
Yeah.
you will have 3 more years, at least, of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
How will you deal with him?
Yeah, listen, I will never bend the knee. I will never kiss the ring. There are so many folks who say, right now in this race, fellow Democrats, oh, I don't know about the Immigrant Trust Act. Oh, I don't know about protecting everybody. Oh, I don't know about, pushing back and fighting. We've seen it. If you try to, hide, if you try to say maybe he'll leave us alone, he will not. He is coming. He is coming for all of us, and it's bit by bit by bit, all at once, but he is coming for us. So as governor, I'll stand up and say, no, these are our Jersey values. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to stand up for every resident.
And the consequences might be pretty dire.
And the consequences are worse if you do nothing and you acquiesce. They're worse. As we sit on the precipice of losing our democracy, as we sit in a moment right now where history is judging us, saying, what have we done? How do we stand up to this person who's dismantling every democratic principle that we hold dear? This is the moment where, and I've done it. Listen, I'm an organizer, right? I'm a union leader, right? I know how to organize and mobilize. We've got to get folks out, folks together, all of us showing through our collective action that we're not going to back down. And then we do have control over things in this state, New Jersey laws, right, that we can implement to make sure we're standing up for our residents.
You're a union leader. Mm-hmm. How do you answer complaints from teachers over having allocated $35 million of their union dues to pay for your gubernatorial campaign?
Well, listen, as a union, we figured out that the only way to even have a small chance of competing with Elon Musk's and Donald Trump and billionaires and millionaires.
They're not running for governor.
Yeah, well, guess what? It's always a Wall Street person who's running for governor here, somebody who's fully funded by Wall Street, somebody who's fully funded by big developers, somebody who's fully funded by Elon Musk, right? In this campaign right now on the Democratic side, somebody who is funded literally by ed reformers and anti-union folks. there is big money, including in New Jersey, in every single race, right? And I can just point to everybody who's running right now, including on the Democratic side. So we figured out, small people have figured out, we need to band together, right? Join a union voluntarily and pool together our
Do you
time,
ask
efforts,
the
and
union
resources.
members if they'll
We
go
are a
along with
representative
this?
democracy. Absolutely. It is a vote, right, of our elected members, right, who have over 130 on one committee, 150 on another, who have voted to move forward with these unanimously, I might add, and I'm really proud of, right, to support
Unanimously on the $35 million?
unanimously, right,
Okay.
and I am proud of that because listen, we invest in every race, in everybody out there who's complaining, right? On the Democratic side who's run for office, every one of my opponents I'm running against now, we've endorsed and supported as a union. Nobody said boo. Nobody has a problem when we take our hard-earned dollars as a teacher, as a custodian, as a bus driver, and give it to someone else. We get that pat on the head. We love you as an educator. Now go back to what you do in your classroom. But the second they see one of us who says, wait a minute, I know what it's like to fight for our communities. It's what I've done every single day, working with the parents that I serve. Hey, I know what it's like to be a labor leader fighting for benefits and stuff that folks need. I've done it my whole career. The second we decide to invest in somebody who's going to lead that mission for New Jersey, there's a concern. Well, we're not concerned. We're fighting to make sure that this is the reality for all New Jerseyans. Someone who's fighting for the middle class, not controlled by big money, Wall Street, and of course the big bosses.
Here's maybe your biggest fight. Fun fact. The state of New Jersey, in the history of New Jersey, has never elected a governor of the same party consecutively. It's the Republicans' turn. Why do you think you have a shot?
Listen, if you went by that thinking, we've never elected a black governor either, right? But I'm running to be governor. We've never elected an educator as governor, but I'm running to be governor. We've never elected, third term Dem, or we're going to call it, right? I'm running for governor. Listen, this is our chance, folks. This is what I'm talking about. This is our chance to break systems, to change things. We can do what we've always done. Right? We can either elect a Republican who I would argue, takes us in a direction like a Chris Christie and really hurts this state. We can elect a Democrat who makes some improvements and moves us in a little bit of a better direction. But at the end of the day, we still never have someone who's fighting for us in the middle class. That's why people are so frustrated, because we always have somebody very wealthy. Maybe they're from Goldman Sachs. Maybe they're somebody of the other party. But right now, we need somebody who's fighting for us in every decision that I make. And that's why I'm running to be the next governor of New Jersey.
And can you get the legislature to go along with your programs?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when we are successful in this, and granted, Andy Kim has helped open that door and some others in terms of the boss politics and pushing back, but this is that next statement. It's that next statement to say, hey, we're tired of leaving it up to others. We're tired of leaving it up to those really rich folks who, around the margins help us in tiny ways, but we're going to fight right now to elect somebody who's fighting for us, because I am, one of us, right? I've struggled to buy that first home. I've struggled to, help my kids. I'm struggling to, with my parents coming to this country. I know these fights, and I'm going to be fighting for the working class. That's why this is our chance to really make a difference.
Sean Spiller, thank you.
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Good to see you.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time to watch the interviews with Mary Alice Williams. Are you looking to take the next step? Then come on and join the Montclair Dems. We're a statewide organization with a network of more than 12,000 volunteers across New Jersey. Please visit themontclairdems.com to start making an impact today. And thanks again for taking a few minutes to join us.